Something big is brewing in Minnesota as the trade rumors for Marco Rossi are going nuts every single day, with players like David Reinbacher, Owen Tippett, and many more being linked to Minnesota. One recent post has a player out of Utah, young star in the making from the Mammoth, on their way to Minnesota in one of these trades. We got to dive into how something even bigger than we first anticipated is going down with these Marco Rossi talks, and how every single player mentioned is the kind of caliber that we would want to bring into Minnesota. We got to dive into the recent reports, Rossi, and all this great stuff on this episode of Wild Digest. But before we do, quick reminder, a lot of you guys, 87% are still not subscribed. Guys, we got content coming every single day on your Minnesota Wild, so hit the free button down below if you don't want to miss a thing. Kirk, let's dive into this. Now, this also comes from Hockey Wilderness, where there's been a lot of discussion. And there was one post that caught our eye very recently that we got to discuss, and it has to do with a certain player out of Utah named Dylan Guenther. Now, I know what you're saying. This is crazy, but look, let's just get into this here. So they say Rossi fits what Utah's looking for in a top six center. He would be reunited with his former 67s coach, Andre Fleury, who's in his first NHL head coaching role, and that could jumpstart his career. Meanwhile, the Wild gained a right shot goal scoring winger in Guenther, who's already signed on a bargain deal for the next 8 years. Now, Kirk, when we first look now at Dylan Guenther, it's like, he did sign this deal back in September, a long-term 8-year deal, $7.1 million. But hey, they're absolutely right. The top-end center depth in Utah is not that great. A couple of good centers there, of course. A guy like Logan Cooley can play some center. A guy like Barrett Hayton that had a 20-goal season. But when it comes to Dylan Guenther, it's not so much of whether him coming to Minnesota would be amazing, because it would be, and we'll dive into that in a second. But Kirk, every single name that we're hearing linked to Rossi from all these different sources seems to be an incredible young talent.
Yeah, and Dylan Guenther in this case, definitely a bold one. But this is the caliber of player we're looking for. And I think this is the caliber of player that is deserving to be returned to Minnesota in a trade for Marco Rossi, wherever it may be. And Dylan Guenther, as you mentioned, a superstar in the making, already classified as one, in my opinion. A fresh, very, very good $7 million deal, which is 8 years. And, deals like that, are going to be very, very good down the line, but also very valuable when it comes to the cap rising and everything. And when it comes to the Utah center depth, it is very deep, but they have not very many top centers. You have Logan Cooley, you have Dylan Guenther. Those are really your top two forwards that are going to be the main pieces of this team, trying to get this team out of the Arizona window, I guess we can say. And it's going to be very difficult to go and get a guy like Dylan Guenther, but the Minnesota Wild have the assets to make it happen. As you mentioned, it would feature Marco Rossi, maybe a guy like Liam Ogren as well, which is to the point there where I'm seeing a bit of an expensive price tag. But regardless, a guy like Dylan Guenther and a guys like the other players that we've seen in articles, whether it may be David Reinbacher, whether it's Owen Tippett, we're seeing the value that Rossi is bringing out from every single report where we're getting any sort of trade coming from. So I think it's a fair value. Now, Dylan Guenther, definitely a bold one for the idea that Utah is going to try and get better by adding him as their top forward for the future. But it's good to see names like that still be in the mix for a Marco Rossi type trade.
And you never know. Like, the thing is, teams often prioritize center depth over winger depth. And again, Guenther seems like the kind of guy that is your star for this Utah Mammoth hockey club right now. So again, it is a bold take. And I don't think we're disillusioned with the fact that, oh yeah, this is definitely going to happen. But something like this could very well happen. I mean, you really never know when teams are doing that. And again, in terms of pure fit, Kirk, I don't think you could pick a better type of player than Dylan Guenther, because you look at what the Wild could look like next season with a player like this, or someone even just similar. You can replace the name Dylan Guenther with any scoring winger that you want, because we know Bill Guerin has said he wants to go out, look at some center depth, but also some scoring wingers. So regardless of whether it's Guenther or not, think of this as scoring winger X. We don't know who it is yet, but they actually go into this article and they kind of make some interesting assumptions about next year. And the opening night lineup involves Danila, Yurov as the number 1C. Now, Yurov, of course, has shown flashes of being able to play center. There have been questions as to, will Danila Yurov play center at the NHL level? Hard to say. I mean, he could be a left winger. He could be a center. We don't really know. But if he does project as a center, playing with Kirill Kaprizov, and you add a good scoring winger, again, Guenther in this case could be a guy like Brock Besser, who we've mentioned a lot, could be another random player that we haven't even considered yet coming over in a trade for Marco Rossi. Again, if that happens, but as the days go on, all we can do is work with all the talk around this kind of trade. You still want some extra scoring depth. Zuccarello maybe isn't quite that top 6 level talent you'd want, but the fact that you have Boldy and Eriksson Ek on that second line, Kirk, if you have Yurov who can play center, this is big. Something big is brewing here, because not only is likely they're going to be a great player coming for Rossi, there's some extra top six shenanigans that are going to go on with Yurov and whoever else. You got Sam Bennett there again if you sign him as the third line center, but like again, there's something huge coming, whether it is Guenther or someone else. Looking at this type of roster, this is not unfeasible.
No, absolutely not. And it does seem and point all of this kind of direction that Bill Guerin, the Minnesota Wild, are looking to make some big changes. Now, whether it is Yurov playing in the 1C, which I think is still, I'll bring this word back, a bit bold at this point to say, but I'm not counting it out. You know, the Wild are going to be trying to do what they can to get this team the best it can be. And putting Dylan Guenther on a line with Yurov, with a line with Kirill Kaprizov, I can see him easily being a 40, maybe even 50 goal scorer on that line. There's so much talent in this top six. And even when it comes to Matt Zuccarello, as you mentioned, a bit older, not really, I would say, a top six forward at this point. I would say middle six more so, second, maybe third line. But pairing with Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson Ek, you're still going to get the best out of him, which is something that is going to be so important for this Wild, and something they've been able to do for the past few years with Matt Zuccarello. He's still been very efficient at an older age, and when you're pairing him with some very smart players and players you're comfortable playing with, we saw how good this is. But if this opening lineup, or this projected opening lineup, shows me something, it's that the Wild are going big, they're going bold, and they're going to try and make stuff happen. Now, we've been able to hear that. We've been able to see that from all these reports that are coming out, but I just really want to see it at this point. I want to see a move made, whether it is Rossi or whatnot. I need to see some big stuff coming. I need to see it for the sake of the Wild. I don't want another repeat of a first round elimination. We need something like this. Something like this has to happen for the Wild to get out of this rut. And when we're looking at this lineup here in specific, even though it is a projection, I'm really liking the way this looks.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, honestly, like if we get that playoff version of Ryan Hartman throughout another full regular season, I mean, that's incredible third line contribution. He can also play some center if you need him to, even if you don't get Sam Bennett, right? Like again, Hartman, Foligno, and throw in someone else in that third line. Hey, it's pretty good. And like you said, Kirk, Zuccarello, if he's playing with two guys who can be very good defensively, and Eriksson Ek, especially him, of course, and even Boldy, who plays some PK, like Boldy's kind of all over the ice as well. You can make up for not only the height, but the defensive. You know, Zuccarello's not horrible defensively sometimes, but like, I mean, let's be honest, he's aging. At this point, you don't want him always out against the other team's top, strongest players, but like Eriksson Ek and Boldy really make up for the weaknesses of Zuccarello that he has with the aging. Again, Guenther and Yurov with Kaprizov, who knows how many goals they could score, or again, if it's Besser or whoever. This team is looking deep already, and we're just one or two big moves, but like, just 1 or 2 days, like, not from now, but like you could just have one day of a big trade, and then all of a sudden this team looks incredibly different heading into next season. But we need to hear what you guys have to say. Is Dylan Guenther even a possibility? What do you think about the fit? I love the idea of the fit of Dylan Guenther. I don't think it's likely. Again, Kirk, this post, we're going to link it down below. It's pretty bold in a lot of things, but that's what I like. Going from the mild to something with a bit more of a bold flavor is something I would love to see in Minnesota. But let us know your thoughts on everything down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Kirk Day. We'll catch you in the next one.